what we're going to do here tonight. This is pretty much entry-level slide guitar. Is there any intermediate slide players here? You guys all sort of new players, or?
Oh yeah.
You're new. You're a new player?
I've been playing slides, but I'm just not very good.
Okay, all right. So what we're going to do, we're going to sort of do like a basic entry level with some intermediate stuff. We're going to film it, so now we're going to send you guys a secret link. We're going to do it on YouTube, so only the people that were here will have a secret link to YouTube if you have internet.
I got data, Brett.
Right. Oh, you got it. So yeah, now we'll have what. But I'm going to keep this simple, and this is going to be more of a question and answering. I'll show you some stuff, how to get started, the techniques. We'll play a few things. We'll do a couple of different tunings to give you an idea of what tunings go where. We'll do it on the lap steel. I think for you, right? You were really the lap steel guy, right? Yeah. So we'll do a little bit of that. The principles and techniques are still the same, just a little different way to play. So what we're going to start with first, and one thing about this thing, there's only two rules. If it sounds bad, this is for you guys. If it sounds bad, stop. If it sounds good, more. There's really no rules to this. There's some techniques I can show you that everybody's got a different way they play slide, and everyone that I see does, and I'm going, how do you do that? Okay, so whatever I say here, don't get entirely locked in. Take this and use it and start adding it to whatever else that you may see down the road. So for me, I'm going to just talk briefly about what I do when I play. Now I play, there's open tunings here, but what I'm doing today, and usually I play in standard, but I will drop the E string and the D, both E strings down to D. And here's the reason I do that. So with the top one, there's a natural combination of notes always right here in these three. Right? So it's a natural open tuning. So when you do that and add the drop D fourth, right? So and I use a drop D here. Now before I'll explain why I do this later on, but what we'll do first is the absolute beginner techniques. So what you're hearing here, even though it may sound like I'm going to play an open tuning, I'm not. It's standard because I also I do a hybrid of both, right? So I like it that way because it's easier for me. Maybe not for you. These guys can play slides anywhere. So the first number one rule that we're going to talk about is in slide guitar. The slide is always over top of the fret and not between the fret. So when you play regular guitar, your note is here. If I put a slide there, it's flat, which is cool for you on tension, like it, you bring it in. But the first things first is the slide's always over top of the fret. Right? Because if you're there, the flat.
The top fret or the low fret?
Okay, yeah, let's be clear about this. Always the leading fret, the high fret, right? So we'll call it the leading fret, the high fret, whatever you want to say. So, you know, if you want to be, like for instance, if you want a D, like if you want to play in D quickly, you know, obviously this is a D string here, but this is G at the 7th fret, it's D. Otherwise you're at the 6th fret, you're flat, right? So that's rule number one. The slide's always above the fret and not in between until we get into that Eastern Indian stuff that we're doing, right? Now we're going to talk about this hand first, and there's multiple ways to do this. For years and years and years, I played on the 3rd finger, right? Which a lot of people tend to do. But I also learned how to make my chords around, where I could bend my fingers around to make the chords when I needed them, where the slide could sit there, right? There's nothing wrong with any finger, except the first one. And I'll explain why you can't use the first one in a little bit. But it really comes down to your preference, to what's comfortable for you. I like the pinky slide this way because when it opens up this entire hand. Now you've got, you can do all the behind the bar stuff easily with lifting the thing. It's more of an extension of my baby finger than it is a big crutch, a stilt almost wearing in the middle. Now you watch guys like Dickie Betts, let's say, and Allman Brothers play, he always played with a 2nd finger. Sound pretty good, right? That's how he made it work. But the key thing is usually the pinky or the 3rd. This is why. When you're playing, you want to avoid it. It's going to be tough to hear the overtones here. If you're playing really loud on a stage with a band, and you're lit up, you'll get a lot of overtones. So one of the things is you want to use the meat of your third finger or second finger and kill the string behind the fret. So you come up with a nice, you got a nice open note there with no noise, right? However, if you're doing like an old blues guy and you want to get lit up, you could go and you could take it off, but you might not want to do that all the time. It gets pretty noisy. You know, I mean, super. That way it keeps it clean. Right? So that's the first technique. That's something that's important. Figure out what your comfort level is. Figure out what's good. A lot of times I use the first finger as long as it cuts it, but you don't have to fret the strings. You're just using it to choke the note. It's just a baffle, basically a baffle, right? So, okay, that was the easy part. If you do that, that's easy. The part I'm going to do next is the most difficult thing, and even now, after 30 years of this stuff, I'm still learning. So, and this was sort of something that was developed, I think, right around the time of Dwayne Allman, but it's what we call the spider technique, okay? So you'll see my situation here. I'll try to do this so you can see. The thing with the spider technique is you're only playing the string that you want to hear. Now, I typically use my thumb, and I'll cover the bottom strings with the thumb that I'm not using, and I'll use the tip of my thumb to cover the third string. And then I've got 3 fingers left for the top 3 strings, right? Now this is where it gets tricky. And so the spider technique, so I'm gonna just do a simple lick. Now you'll see I use the second finger back down, right? So, and it's tricky because when you get going, right? Yeah, when you get going fast, what I'm doing there is whatever string I'm not using, I'm muting. But you look at it like a spider. It's like the spider's walking around. It ain't, unless you're one of those prodigies, and one of you guys might be, sure, you might get it right away. This will be the most difficult part of playing slide guitar using your fingers. Whether you use the thumb pick, whether you use the fingers, that's the part. And you find your technique. But the idea is you don't want, if I'm playing here, I don't want that string because, right, I want to go, I just want that. So you can hit the slide hard, but it's killed because my thumb's killing those strings, right? So it's tricky.
I do that when I'm playing regular guitar.
Can you do it?
With my regular
Right.
guitar.
So there you go. That's prodigy right there. You put on the next clinic right away. So that's the spider technique, and again, so the idea is for me, and some guys, it depends on how you get there. If it sounds bad, obviously it's wrong, right? But I use the thumb to cover the bottom 3, and then I allow these 3 fingers to use the top 3, and I've always got the pinky as an anchor because it helps. It helps as gives you. And that'll translate everywhere. We'll see as we go. You'll see this is the biggest technique. Any questions so far? It's a Q&A.
So you say you're not an open, but you're in open tuning, but it sounds like you've got everything but the A string in open G.
So it's what you see because this is the hybrid. Did you come in partway through? Did you hear me do the first part? I can't remember.
No, I came in like that.
Yeah. So this particular tuning,
Yeah.
for me, this is like what I use, right? So it's actually 2 drop Ds, and then it gives me the right. So the A string is still the A, but I'm using this because I also and then use the slide again, right? So that's why I do it. So it gets me close to open tuning. The problem is, and we'll get into this, the problem is with open tunings they sound beautiful. You gotta really learn to play the guitar, right? If you want to play chords and play lead guitar, it's not hard to do, but it's another form of discipline, right? So it's sort of an open tuning thing, but yeah, it's in standard because I prefer it that way for me, right? I also, when I'm in the studio, or if I'm on the road with a lot of guitars, I will have open tuning guitars as well, but they're really a one-trick pony for that whatever particular song, right? So Okay, so those are the first two important things. Now the third most important thing, and this is also, even though I said this was difficult, this is even more difficult, and that's the vibrato. You know, to get human beings tend to be nervous. They'll go, do that sort of thing. I'm guilty of it. And it just is. You look at a guy like Ry Cooter, let's just say he goes. He's got that slow, and that's really called getting control, like controlling your vibrato. It's not easy, right? But it's a signature as well. If you hear a guy like Dwayne Allman from across the field, you know it's him. If you hear Derek Trucks, you know it's him. If you hear Sonny Landreth, it's all based on that. It's the signature. It's just like any kind of vibrato, but right. So, and that's something that I like to. What I suggest to everyone who comes to these clinics is you get yourself a tuner, like a floor tuner. And this will be boring as hell when you're sitting and watching TV, but watch your tuner, grab your note, and do that, and watch the tuner, and get that tuner to go exactly what you want it to do. It gives you an idea. And also because of pitch, because we'll get into pitch as well, because if you're here all the time, right, that's not even, so it's important, right, because if you're doing this, you're probably on that bad thing, but if you're doing that, you can hear that, right? You can hear that, and that's literally from here just a little bit, so it's very careful. So the vibrato helps with that. Because if you just went, it's kind of plain, right? But if you go, it's your signature, and then all of a sudden, if you get a good one, you do B.B. King, like where he's going, you see his vibratos, he takes the string right off the neck, you know it's him. You hear it, you can play some in 20 guitar players, and you will know that that's B.B. King. Right? So vibrato, at the same time, don't forget that you're using the fleshy part of your finger here to get rid of the back, the overtones from behind, right? Okay, so those are the first three basic important things. Is there any questions about that?
Yeah, and that slide you got on your little finger, is that a heavy one? Is that copper or brass?
We'll get into different tones too, but yeah, this is brass. Well, this is actually the Ariel Posen signature picky slide.
Is it heavy?
No. If you hand him that slide, you can just take. It's not heavy, but it's brass, and there's some different qualities about the slides that we use. And I can get into that now.
What do you
Actually,
think of glass?
well, I like glass. I love glass, and I've always used glass. I used glass right up until that thing, right? That one, because you compare the slides, that one is a lot smaller, a lot bulkier, and it still gives me the same amount of sustain that I need, right? But it's also not like wearing a huge drywall stilts or whatever, the stilts, right? Because it can be, but people like that, for the sustain part. But so what I find with the brass and with that, the brass is more of a brash tone, and it works well on the steel body. As well as anywhere. I just like it now. Glass is great. Glass is a way more compressed sound. The electric guitar players like to use. You can hear it. It's just a little more compressed, a little more glassy, compressed. Not quite as brash. I guess brash is the word for the brass, right? The problem with these are people can wear them here too, but then I find you got to find your zone, right? We've got those Rich Robinsons up there, and they're actually tapered in the middle. They're really good because they're tapered right to your finger. They fit super tight, right? So glass is great for electric guitars. Especially amplified and plugged in, but it's not so great for these ones. So the problem with these ones are there's no sustain because there's no mass to it. With the brass, you get a big heavy piece of brass. Actually, if you can Singer, can you grab me one of the Rich Robinsons? We might as well pull one out and show you one because that's a heavy brass one. But so they don't work so well on acoustic because it's really more of an electric thing, right? Sorry, guys, Singer, you guys. He's on overtime tonight because this is so important, So So this one you can see, well, you can look at that, the thing about they're tapered, right? This has got some meat to it. So now you can go, now you've got, you got some sustain now, right? So brass is good for that. Ceramic is really cool. It's heavy and beefy, but it's a darker tone. So, and these, when I talk about these tones, they're very subtle and minute, and you may not notice them for the first couple weeks you're doing this until you really get into this whole thing. You're going, oh yeah. You can tell the tones will start to come to you. You'll realize that it really is more of a darker. It's still not bad for a guitar like this. It's got enough mass and sustain, but it's way darker. It's not bright at all. Well, Dobro's an entirely different thing. We'll get to that one. We got something set up for you exactly. This guy's the only lap steel guy that was interested. The rest of the guys were all going to be playing just slide guitar things, right? So ceramic, darker tone, and then it becomes you guys. I mean, that becomes your what you like. It's so subjective, right? It depends what you think you like. Any questions? Ask them anytime you got them.
Are there any issues with fretboard radius or anything like that? Should we start flatter or?
Well, I mean, if you're starting with slide, here's the thing. Like my actions are set fairly low, but I'm used to that. Obviously, and ideally, it's better to have higher action for slide because the one thing you want to avoid, and I guess we should discuss this right now. So I'm going to put this back for a little bit. We should discuss is I guess I forgot to say this right off the bat. The fret is the slide is only to touch the string, right? You just touch it. You don't. If you fret down on it, it's almost. But then you got that fret noise, you know. So you're just touching it, right? So now, obviously, if the action is a little bit higher, you have a lesser chance of fretting out, right? So then when you do hit, if you get a little bit heavy, you don't want to have that. You don't want to have that noise there. Can you hear that? Right? You just touch it. It's just a feather touch on the string. As a result, you might want just a little higher action. But there's another trick where you get into here where that could go against you if you really get into this whole thing. So in summary, maybe just a touch higher action, unless you really have a feather touch and then keep it where it is, and that becomes the magic of it.
String gauge.
I like 11s. Like the one thing about slide guitar, the heavier the string, the beefier the tone. Billy Gibbons uses 7s, but I mean I don't know, who knows what he does. That's Billy Gibbons. He lives on another planet, basically, right? But for something like slide guitar, the heavier the gauge, the better, right? It's just more tone, beefier tone. Especially if you're not. I use 11 through 49 because I'm hybrid speed and slide, right? If I had my druthers, I'd go 13s. I've got a Les Paul that I just made the record with that's got baritone strings on it. It's tuned down to open C. So it's huge. Like you hit a chord, I think it just sounds big, but that's pretty heavy. Like you're not going to be doing a lot of lead work with the baritone string on a short scale guitar. It really has to be tuned down, right? Okay, so far, are we good so far? I'm trying to jam as much stuff into this thing as I can, so you can either go home completely confused, or you'll go, I got it all. You know, it depends on how much you can take in here. All right, so before we move on to tunings, I'm gonna just give you the coolest thing, especially with using a pinky slide or a third finger slide, and that's called the behind the bar fretting. So. You see what's happening there? So you get all these cool. So if you look up a guy like Sonny Landreth, he's famous for that shit. I mean, you hear what he's doing there; it's all behind the slide. So let's go through that technique and what has to happen there. So the idea is pretty simple. You know, let's say you want to we'll play in D. So the idea is, I'm going to spin around this way. So this becomes a very subtle technique, but the idea is you lift the slide up gently. Can you guys all see that from back there? Can you see it well enough? So see how, right then, if you go like this, it's going to be crazy. So, right, that's sort of the eye. And you can even get like the seventh. Sorry. You get minor. And that becomes, for the players, you got to understand where your notes are. So if you want to go minor, of course it's going to be. Or, and then the trick with that is too. Now this is the one time that you don't want to be killing the strings in behind it. You don't want, because you want that chordal thing. So it's like a. But you want to try to get the vibrato in as well, right? So. It's more difficult down there, but there's you got to lift a little more, right? So there's a lot of motor skills involved with all this, and this is why it's not going to come easy. It might come easy to you guys. You might wind up going home and owning this shit in a week, but the reality is, don't get frustrated if it's not going right away. It takes a lot of motor skills to do everything. And you figure out, come and teach me, because every day I'm still learning, like every day, right? That's the cool thing about slide is, like with North American musical scale, we recognize 12 notes in the octave system. With slide, that's a note we don't recognize, but that's why the Eastern Indian music is so interesting, because the slide they play is out of control. Every note's a note. The gray notes, for those guys, every note is a note, and we're just sort of sitting here with our 12 doing what we do, right? So the cool thing about slide is it allows you to get to that. So that would be a fine example. That's just a single. So that's something you just work on at home. You find out your chords and find out, if you play the slide beautifully, you can play a whole song with it. And you just got to get those chord configurations, especially in an open tuning, right? Because everything's different. Everything changes from that, right? So that's behind the bar fretting. And I'm going to look at something on the lap steel too. We'll go to that for a second. But that's the thing that can really give you your signature. If you do that, if you work on that, if you listen to guys like Sonny Landreth, you can hear him from a mile away, because that's what he does and he owns it. It's the coolest trick ever. It's not a new trick. It's been going on forever. If you listen to Ariel Posen now, the same thing, but he's all jazzy. Like he's doing all these slide things, like in a traditional slide guitar in a jazz chord context. It's crazy, right? You start opening the doors up here, all the doors get open, right? All right. Everyone having fun so far?
Oh, yeah.
These things are weird as hell for me. I'm gonna be honest with you, right? I'm just used to a bunch of people screaming and drinking beer.
Do that.
You can do that as well too, but I mean, I feel like,
You have to say it.
I shouldn't say they're weird as hell, but I'm always, I get people staring intently like this.
Nobody's
Feels like
clapping, so.
everybody's judging.
Yeah, I feel like I'm just gonna do a quick switch over here. I'm gonna go to this amp. All the stuff we're using today all belongs to Dwayne. It's all, except for this guitar and this guitar. This is all store stuff, and this thing just came in. I'm going, this is the most beautiful lap steel amp. And the guy he took and traded, it's got a 15-inch speaker. We'll get into why that is cool. All right, so is there anybody interested in lap steel or dobro here? It's part of it, right? It's all okay, right? So I know it's kind of a niche thing. So here's the thing: the principles are still the same, right? Just a little bit different. So with the lap steel, I'm just.
Can you start by, if I never played a lap steel before, why do I want to learn lap steel? What's the difference as a player between playing lap steel and playing?
So the lap steel, a good question. First of all, if you play good lap steel, you'll never go home alone. Right? If you play a bad slide guitar, you'll be driving all over the world alone, right? So the lap steel simply is, this is a simpler version of the pedal steel. It doesn't do as much as the pedal steel. It's got its own little thing. But the lap steel, and anything I played here, it can be played in the lap steel as well. But the lap steel tends to get used a little more for the country guys and the blues guys, if they're the dirty blues guys. Now, I've tuned this one to Open G. Open G, and I don't mean like Nashville Open G, I mean like GBD. If you go to the true Nashville Open G, it's D. They drop this down to D, but your chord positions get weird. It's great, and that's what those guys do. It's kind of weird, or you can just have like a beautiful, right? So now you can get into the cool thing about Open G as well is that you can get into the C6 world, and the C6 is that Hawaiian sort of sound, right? I find that G works good for this. C6 is Hawaiian. Open E or Open D is blues. Although Open E does cross into Open G, you can get a lot of cool stuff out of that too. But so the techniques are the same. The spider techniques is the same. It's still the same. Matter of fact, it's probably easier now because you're sitting on your lap, as opposed to the mechanics and the ergonomics here, right? So the difference is now is the way now. There's many different bars, right? I like to use these the Dunlop bars, the Tone Dogs. We've also got the Shubs for the Dobro, like that for the true Dobro guys. But the idea is that the thumb goes down the slot on that side, the top finger rests in the pocket, the third finger rests behind that, and then you're using either this finger or the pinky to kill behind the note, right?
So you're just laying your entire hand right on.
Yeah.
Just
Now we'll do some dobro sort of pull-offs and stuff, right? But what's cool, and this is also actually, if you've got lap steel, this is a good way to help your vibrato. This vibrato is a lot easier for control than doing it that way, right? So you see why the vibrato is important. You can really notice it on this. Not so much electric guitar, but when you're doing, it just sounds like it just sounds like pedal steel. Without, you have to be a genius to play pedal steel if you've seen. Well, you really do. I mean, those guys with their 7 or 8 knee levers and 10 pedals and 2 banks, and they know every chord block in the book.
Yeah.
Jimmy Boskill, actually, a quick little side story. So Jimmy Boskill, he's the guitar player from the Sheepdogs and Blue Rodeo. So he and I made a record last week, and he did a pedal steel part, and it brought me to tears. I'm watching this guy doing that. His intonation, his pitch was perfect, and to watch him do that and do all that, it takes a genius. It really does. So again, the key thing is kill the notes, and this one, because the lap steel is typically higher, obviously you can get right down. You can see me pressing down, and you just gotta watch your intonation.
Is that how like pitch bend as you're pressing down on those strings?
Well, you can. We're gonna do bar bends. I'm gonna show you a couple of sweet bends for the lap steel guy, because this is the most difficult part of lap steel is the
You're
bends.
still playing over top of the fret though.
Always over the fret, yeah. Same principles are involved. You can just press a little harder, get a little more compression and sustain when you do it that way.
Because you're putting more tension on the string.
Right, and you get, like, it's still going. There's a compressor on there, but you can, you know what I mean? You can still hold that and sustain it. Sounds pretty cool, right? So these are just simple chord blocks that you can use, right? You get it. We'll do a couple of tricks, but here's the most simple, to make this fun for you guys, this is the most simple trick you can learn. So a standard country thing would be like, sorry. Right, so you see, you can make it almost like a pedal steel thing, but here's the trick. So now here, I'm trying to think the best way I can show you this, maybe from this way here. So the first, the forward slants are the easiest slant to do because ergonomically it just fits. There's also the backward slants, but then you got to really right? Unless you're double jointed, you're made of rubber, right? But these ones are ergonomically, because it's just easy, right? So that first bend, you see what's happening there? So what's happening, and this is where it gets difficult because you have no guide. It all comes down to here. If I go, right, you can hear that, right? So the idea is now we're doing a combination of the G note over the seventh, or excuse me, the G string over the seventh fret, and then bringing the bar down. You got to really get that minor. So the bottom part of the bar is a fret below. Yeah. So it's right, and then now that's you slide it up, but you got to hit it because if you just come up short, it's right, and it's that much. Like it's really, so it comes down to this. You don't have a stopper here stopping you. It's not like there's a fret that you can go over. Yeah, you really have to use this. That'll take some time, and you might not want to play in the band right away until you have that figured out. You know, if you want to remain friends with the band, right? So, right, and then, so now you take it,
You sweep through. Okay.
you slowly spin it. So now on this one here, we're at the 11th, we're on the low fret, and one fret below, and then you sort of, right? And that's a super easy one to practice for your pitch. Because if you get that, then you realize if you try to go in with those ones too quickly, you might be a little sour. If you have partners at home, or if you have anyone at home that you're gonna make piss off, that's gonna be the one that does it. Your dogs.
Yeah.
Dogs kind of like it though. I've always found the dogs will come right. They'll be your best friend in a lap
know
steel.
something when I play my regular guitars, they turn their heads off, but when I'm practicing with steel,
Right.
they listen.
So that's an easy lick to play on your lap steel or your dobro. It'll work on a dobro as well. A little less sustained, of course. You're not going to have the where you can sit and hang it that way, but it's still a good way to do it.
Yeah, but we turn mine into electric too.
So there you go.
So that'll make a difference too, right?
Now what I'm gonna do. You've got Open G, right? These tunings you can find online if you want to practice. We don't have to go through that, right? So I'm gonna take this down now to an Open E to show you just a couple more tricks before we move on to the other one.
Playing minors, which you're doing with the slant.
Yeah.
Like if it was like an open D, you could do the minor thirds, right?
Yeah.
But you're only getting those. It's a high pitched one. Is there any other tunings that are a little friendlier to play minors?
Well, you almost have to drop this down to a minor, like to actually get to a minor. When you get to, I was going to show some stuff on the Open E, right? Because the problem is it's such a happy sound, right? So that's your minor. But then you got to work on that because that's that ergonomic one. It can be done,
Right.
but you might want to practice this one forward a bit before you get into that one, right? Because that's even more difficult. Yeah, at least I speak for myself only. That it's very difficult, but you can. I mean, you can also. Like you might tune the steel differently to make it easy, so you don't. What you do want to avoid is a lot of these crazy bends until you get good. If you can get it. Right, so you might consider just dropping a string if you want to play in the minor and then work around that as well. It's easier to get into some minors in Open E than it is in G because G is such a happy, the way it's just GBD, GBD, it's a happy sound, like a banjo. If you hear a sad banjo, it's usually not that fun. All right, get this down here. So if I was smart, I would have had that at a national tuned to Open E, but we're very busy here at the guitar corner. We just can't do everything all day long.
That technique where you're rotating the bar to get the two frets at the same time, is that only something you can do on lap steel? Because ergonomically, the way that you're
No, you can do an electric guitar too.
You
You
can
can
do
do an electric guitar, and again, it's
Yeah.
easier. You just got to do it. I mean, it all depends
Yeah.
on what you can do. If you're double and triple jointed,
It's just easier on lap.
yeah. Well, just because of the ergonomics of it.
Right.
So now you'll see we get more into that, some of that blues.
That's cool.
Right, so we won't get on that, but the thing. So. So you can still get into that world, but now you're in a different ergonomic position, right? So now, easier to get minors now with an open E by the string combination, right? So depending on. And for you dobro guys, open E is typically Jerry Douglas. All the stuff he does is pretty much open E, right? If that's helpful, when you hear that dobro stuff that he does. So those are two choices. If you got a couple laps to it, you can go G is country, the E is blues, and you get the. And you see, that's what's cool. When a lap steel, you can do that forever and ever and ever until the band sends you home, right? Okay, so that's essentially the lap steel. Like it's really the same sort of process. You know, to get to answer the minor things, it can be easily gotten to, but way easier on a pedal steel because you've got all those strings. You know what I mean? So to do the lap steel, there is some restrictions, at least in my world, that when you're looking for something minor, you might just want to drop. You know, like in this case, drop it down. Right, so you're not really doing bar bends, but you're sort of, the problem is you're kind of, then you have to do, but you can do a really good forward bend to get back into major. So it's easier to get, but then you got to use the spider to make sure you kill that G string, right? That's the whole thing with getting into that whole thing. So you're kind of easier suited to go, just drop the string, you know, drop whatever one you want to use. Just that B string will make everything minor or major. It's pretty easy. In this case, with open E, if you drop the G string, because then you still got the natural combination at the top, right? So.
Or if you go like a drop key, you got the bottom three strings, right?
Yeah. So and that's all just physics and notes of guitar, right? Depends on how you did it. It's just the way the notes are, basically, right? So. Okay, so that's sort of the lap steel, which translates easily to dobro without getting into the whole finger picking thing. The one thing about these, you know, it's also.
Thank you.
I tend to wear a thumb pick a lot. It's also like wearing a crutch. It might be something you want to do, but the reason we wear a thumb pick even more so now is we get into this style of slide guitar over here. But if you could even use a thumb pick here, like some players also like the finger picks. I kind of like skin on string. Like I like the sound of it. It's a little clacky, but then I see pedal steel guys using those picks and it sounds beautiful. I don't know. For me, I just can't do it, right? But they seem to hold that stuff, right? But I always do tend to go into a thumb pick. And again, do you guys use thumb picks now? Does anybody actually use them?
I do.
You do, right? Especially with acoustic, right? The one thing, if you start playing acoustic slide now, you're gonna chew your hands up pretty quick.
Well, I blew out some fingernails.
Yeah, right. So. Now, I'm going to actually go to a heavier slide. Now, I go to the finger slide. We'll put this in. Same thing. Like everything, all the mechanics are still the same. But remember now, you're on your own. You're naked without an amplifier. to cover stuff up. So you know when you're and this is open E again that we're using on here too, which works pretty good. This guitar just came in the game. This is another one we just took a trade in. It's ironic. I didn't need to bring any of my guitars because we're just using store. The boss loves this tonight. You know, you get it. We'll edit this in the film, but the boss loves the idea that we're using all his stuff in the store here.
And the steel body on that guitar is just giving you more resonance, more volume.
Well, kind of, and also this is a tricone. So this one is a knockoff of a national tricone.
Okay.
But inside there, it's got 3 little cones.
Oh.
The other one, so you can see them. I don't know if the light
like
works.
speakers behind
Yeah, I
them.
can see
Yeah, they're little cones. So each one of these is a resonator cone that's attached to the huge biscuit here. The other nationals are a stylo. It's just a
So what's the
single.
difference between that and the dobro that I have? It has the plate up front.
Well, the dobro has a round plate. This is a tricone, so it's the oddest of the bunch because it's got 3 small cones.
So
a standard style O is like a dobro. Only the cone, like in this case, the cone is a plate there. It's still the same principle. It rests on one big cone with the nut. That's where you get the resonance from, right? But the dobros tend to sound a little more warmer, even though it's a tiny dobro. And these things are more of a metallic body.
So
right?
that sound is resonating more from the inside than it is the outside?
No, most of the tone is coming off these cones and up through the hole.
Okay.
The body's not giving it much resonance. There's not a lot of there's nowhere near as much resonance on a steel body as there is on a nice piece of wood, like a nice piece of mahogany. That's just the physics of it all. But what this does is give you that. Gives you that twangy.
The dobro will do the same?
What's that?
The dobro will do the same?
Well, now if you're playing it like this, yeah, but it's going to be a little warmer. It's not going to be quite.
Tinny.
Yeah, tinny, and I hate to use the word tinny because this is a good tone. Tinny always sort of gives you a
Sounds
negative
cheap.
Yeah, it gives you a negative connotation. But you're right, like it's a tinnier sound. But what's the positive way to say tinny?
Metallic.
What is it?
Metallic.
Metallic. Yeah, metallic. It's more
There we go.
metallic.
There we go.
And she's a metalhead too. She didn't even think of metallic, and I guess I was right. I thought you were gonna go, but yeah, so a little more metallic, right? A little more so, but. Now the thing with the open thing, like these sound great in open tuning, right? But it's going to be on you guys to learn some of the chords. Like, for instance, you're playing a blues song, right? There's your 5 chord, but that's like almost like an E chord in a regular guitar, right? So this sort of comes down to when you're doing your chords, you have to learn that one on your own, whatever you want to do. But it's like. So you see how they incorporated everything we just talked about in one small little blues lick, right? Now, I know I sped through it pretty quick, but we got all the behind the bar stuff, and then you just got to figure out your chords if you're an open E or whatever tuning you choose to do, right? Whatever. I mean, that one's on you guys. So when you're sitting around, because I don't know half these chords. Right, so and again, these ones here, like with the square neck dobro, obviously it's like this, right? Yeah, so it's meant to be played that way. But these are cool because you can get both ways. You've got the round neck. Actually, for fun here, I'll do this because this is the kind of guitar where you might prefer a little heavier slide, a little more mass, a little more sustain. You can go. I can still do it. See, for me, it gets difficult now because I got to do a second stretch over there. So when you're,
Can I do that on a 12-string Gretsch?
you can if you want.
Is that a lot of work?
It's a 12-string Gretsch. How long does it take you to tune it?
Oh, 10 minutes.
Okay, so we got another 20 for the behind the bar stuff. And you're good to go. You can. Yeah, again, it's a 12-string. I mean,
What about the 6-string?
it's better on 6-string.
Okay.
Right? I mean, obviously, right? I mean, the 12-string, of course, the mechanics of that, all of a sudden you've got double the weight anyways,
Yeah.
right? If you can do it, you'd be a pretty cool guy. There's not a lot of slide 12-string players out there in that valley,
I've
right?
tried it.
Right.
I've been working on it.
Right, but it can be done. But yeah, so again, if you're playing acoustic, like, are you guys, some of you guys acoustic slide players, or what's your whole thing? I know you're a dobro guy.
Well, I have.
You got them all,
Yeah.
right? But the thing is, so this is what I suggest. If you don't have slides, if you guys are laying on acoustic slides right now, acoustic guitars, I'd probably get some a little bigger, a little more mass to make it fun. If you're playing electric guitar, I'd probably look for a skinnier little slide. I mean, and again, it's up to you. You might take the biggest. One of you guys might do this and have it all. I just find it, for me, it's a little bit, it's awkward. It's like wearing stilts, right? Right. So I would lean towards that. If you're acoustic, get yourself a big chunk of brass. You know, if you're electric, get yourself a glass bottleneck. And if you want to do like the tiny thing where you want to do it all at once, get the finger slide. You can also get both and just keep playing. Like, I'll tell you one thing.
Get a couple of each and just.
I have a graveyard of slides at home because I collect them all the time. Going, I love this one, and then 2 months later, I hate this slide. And they pick another one. I love this one. And ironically, this one right here, and I don't know what it is. This is the longest one I've ever used in my entire life. It has 2 years now. Maybe 2023, maybe 3 years. But yeah, so these pinky ones, these are just, it's the company's called Rock Slide. But then we've got all these brass ones, like Dunlop makes these. This is the Rich Robinson signature. This is a nice slide. Pass this one around and put it on your third finger. You see what I'm talking about. This was the years, I've been endorsed by Ariel for 25 years. I've been there a long time. I've been lucky to keep hanging on to me. That one's got a taper. No, the reason I love those is because it's got that taper. It fits like a glove. So you can put it in your third finger and get lots of mass and sustain, right? Put it on that way. It's
What I like about like when I put it on my little finger and I play, it's like trying to be gentle with a sledgehammer.
Yeah, smack the neck of the
Yeah.
guitar.
He's got a good point.
That's okay.
yeah,
He's got a good point, especially if you're trying to muffle.
yeah. I mean, but I used them for years. Like, it just, again, it comes down to your style. Like, it might feel bulky at first. It might feel like but if you get into it, there's a lot of pluses to that. I sort of, when I play National Steel now, occasionally I do this show in Toronto where it's just me and a porch board with a National guitar. I use that because I just can't get enough out of this on that. It's just not enough mass sustain.
Acoustic.
Yeah, and again, National Steel guitar like that, like this one. You know, and so I like that. I like that one more for that.
Mm-hmm.
But this is, like I said, this is a new thing. It's just because it opens up that whole new world for chord progressions and chord patterns within the actual guitar and on the slide. Okay, so that's the slide part of it. Everyone understands that, you know, what slides are for which, pretty much. So we'll get into a couple of cool things here. We're closing. We're actually nailing this pretty good. Might have you guys home in time for. Nothing's on anymore now, right? The games are over. What's left?
Blue Jays are playing.
Oh, it's Blue Jays. Well, you're out in the forest anyways. You probably go and defend yourself from the coyotes out there. So I think it's a wall. Okay.
And the Black Rivers.
The single most important thing when you get in, and this is going to focus more on the electric stuff now. Okay. So the single most important thing. I'm just going to swap over here. Put this thing back on. I don't know what this is. We'll just leave it on this amp now. Okay, so for slide guitar, because you really want to get that sustain thing in, a compressor is your best friend. So here's no compressor. It's kind of there. I'm going to set the sustain a bit hotter, right? So now,
What about a blues pedal?
we'll get there.
Okay.
I know. Yeah, well, we can get 1,000 pedals right now. We're getting there, but so here's the thing with compressors. There are a million of them, and you will go through. You will have a graveyard of compressors. Because you'll always find one you love, then you get a bit better, then you're going to want to find another compressor. The biggest and I'm going to speak strictly for me. Not for every player out there. For me, the biggest thing about a compressor is the transparency. You want to have the compressor, but you don't want to hear it's compressed. And I'll show you what I mean. I'm going to jack this thing right up. Now you hear that? Like here, you can hear the compression. This compression you can hear. Now I've got this jack up. So, but the thing is, and this one actually, we just got these one, and this is by a company called Mayfly in Ottawa. I'm actually enamored with it. This is one of the first compressors that I've seen lately that doesn't sound like a compressor. It's simple, 3 knobs and the truth, and it gives you. I forgot I'm not in G. So it's there, it kind of dies out. Maybe I'll bring this up just a touch. So, you hear those little overtones? You can get close to feedback at low volume if you set it just right. Still going.
That's
So
the sound of your vibrato, right?
it's helping it. But that's the vibrato just being plugged in. Right? It's a thing. But the thing is with compressors, you really got to work with them. Like, this one's a beauty. I'm surprised because I've got a graveyard and I've been through a million of them. And I'm liking these ones. I also like the JHS Weighty Tighties, the mini ones. For some reason, it's a beautiful transparent compressor. It's the most important thing in your signal chain. More important than even the overdrive, which we'll get to, right? But so compression for slide guitar is your absolute best friend.
What's being compressed?
What's that?
What's being compressed?
The actual so here's the other thing about this. Also, this is a pedal board rule, because I'll help you through this. A pedal board rule. On a pedal board, the compressor should be always the first thing in line, right? Because you're compressing what's coming out of the pickups right away. So when you're compressing it, what you're doing is taking sort of a wide open note and putting it into a box and squeezing it. So it gives you that.
It sounds clearer.
That's nothing a volume knob or a gain knob can do.
Not really. I mean, you can, but it doesn't really compress it. It just gives you more dynamic. Yeah. There's a difference between dynamics and between compression. Both are highly useful. Of course, you get into that if you're doing a slide thing. If you're down here and you want to build like a Derek Trucks sort of, let's say, a tension thing. You just start bringing it up until you're. Now that's without compression. And then you hear it start to release a little bit. And this is something you really notice at a higher volume. Like when it hits the compressor first, it squashes it, and then it releases as the volume. Yeah, the volume goes up and releases. So that's why, again, it's the most integral part of the thing that you can ever get if you're going to play slide guitar, especially on lap steel, because then you get all of that beautiful pedal steel style sustain, right?
So you're trying to sell something here.
No. I mean, sure. But the thing is, it's a deep world, man. There's so much of this stuff. We've got a bunch of compressors there. But the reason I chose this one today, this is one of the nicest ones I've heard in a long time. We're pleasantly surprised. They brought the line. I'm going, oh, yeah, we'll take some of those, right? So, also a good one is it's the Accountant. The Montreal Assembly, I think Fairfield Circuitry. It's called the Accountant. Great compressor. And the JHS Weighty Tighty, that's a really good compressor. And these Mayflies, the ones we have here, they're really good compressors. So when you start looking, that I would start at those points and see. You can get cheap, shitty compressors, but you can get on Amazon and buy almost $40 compressors, and you're going to sound like a $20 guitar player in a $50 room. Or you can get, $100 compressor, whatever they are, and you're going to sound like a $500 guitar player in a $1,000 room, right? Where you want to be. You know what I mean? You want to have good tone at that point. So that's one of the key, the most key. Then the next step is like you'll notice on this amp's already got some built-in drive. It sounds pretty cool. See how that opens up now with the compressor, right? So that's why that's important. When it comes to the overdrives, there's a million.
We're definitely going to be doing some more business.
But so overdrive, that's your next thing, right? Now I play Supros pretty much exclusively now because they've got that beautiful mid-range hump, and I'm just going to take this back there because I love this for lap steel, but not so much for this one over here, right? That's with nothing. Like right now, that's a Supro amp straight in. And ideally, that's kind of as you get older, that's how you want to get it. Because I'm sick and tired of carrying pedal boards. I like to walk into the gate with me and a guitar and make Foresight stuff. I have him. Like he's kind of busy. He's got a better job than me, so I can't afford it. But the thing about this again is now like that's so now you'll notice with the compressor, especially this, you'll hear a little dirt. You lose some because the compressor is squashing it, right? So then when you get into that, so you get that drive there, right? Now the cool thing about the overdrives, they're forgiving. The cool thing about the drive is when you're going, this will mask some of the inconsistencies as you learn, right? That sounds better than that.
So to that end, does play what sounds cool still stand, or would you say get your technique solid playing clean so that you sound?
That's a good point.
Two trains of thought, right?
That is a really good point.
So you listen to Lowell George from Little Feat, clean as hell, beautiful slide player, awesome, right? You also listen to a guy like Sonny Landreth, who's got some drivers in there and he's got some old school amps in there and it sounds clean and awesome, right? I mean, sure, if you can play clean and make it sound good, but the thing with slide is it's so unique with different overdrives on it. Really, so you're not. It's an interesting question. You're not wrong, but I think I'm not sure how much that would play into it altogether.
You get to paint with more colors if you're going to play with them.
Yeah. And of course, as you develop your style, you'll realize that some things become integral to that style.
Sure.
You may wind up being the sort of the Landreth guy who's always doing it. Which doesn't sound so cool clean, or maybe it will. I mean, you may stumble onto something really, who knows? That's the cool thing about this, is there's really every tone.
There's no rules.
Any one of you guys could pick up this exact rig right now and are going to sound entirely different than I do. And that's what's so cool about guitars. I played Sonny Landreth's rig. You sit here, try this, man. I played it. We did some shows in Florida years ago. I didn't sound anything like Sonny. I sounded like an idiot. When I'm playing through his stuff, I go back to my stuff where I feel like I'm closer to home again, right? So that really depends. It really depends.
Same reason chasing gear doesn't work. Find what you like.
Yeah. I think more so if you learn to clean it up on acoustic, then you're going to be good at electric. If you can play the acoustic,
that was the question I was asking, right?
Yeah.
It's just like what's best for developing the technique, right?
But again, you might not be an acoustic guy. You may just be really super cool with electric, right? But I always find as an unwritten rule, if you play good acoustic, probably gonna be pretty good electric, because the mechanics and the ergonomics are so much more difficult.
I was always taught learn acoustic before playing electric.
Yeah, and I'm not sure that was a good rule, because my father did that too. But it turns out my father was just pissed off, and I don't want that noise right now. And you're gonna do this until you're out of the house, right? And I say that jokingly, but my parents wouldn't let me be a drummer. I want to be a drummer. You're gonna be a guitar player, and then we're gonna do this one, right? And then, but I realized everything I learned on acoustic. Once I got to this, I'm going, oh. a lot easier. You already come in with a better command of the fretboard doing.
My mom did the same thing. She wanted me to learn acoustic because that was the right way to do it, but I wasn't mature enough to give a shit. So I didn't practice because I wasn't
What
cool.
do you find easier? What did you find easier? Once you
Well,
learn
now I have
the
a
acoustic,
2.5-year-old, so I play acoustic almost exclusively.
Right. At
When
3 in the morning,
when
in
you
the
pick
basement from the farthest part of the house.
That's right.
when you pick up your electric,
Oh, so much more fun.
thank you.
All right, so we're kind of pretty close. I mean, have you got any serious questions that I can help with at this point?
Yeah, like you just keep them like.
Well, we pretty much were. I can't really stuff in anymore at this point without making it confusing. And it was pretty good. Like it was a
Okay,
pretty
so I have a blues driver at home.
right. Yep.
How is that going to work?
Same thing. It's tonal. Like the blues drivers are more of a low gain drive. This is a Supro overdrive that I chose tonight. The blues drivers are more of a low gain drive, and that's why people like them. But you could also put a distortion pedal on it. Again, it will all work. But again, if it sounds bad, don't do it. If it sounds great, more. That's the rule. The very first rule we laid out, right?
It would depend on what you're playing and how you're
Yeah.
playing it.
But the key thing is if you do a compressor, first in line. Yeah, you don't want to have the compressor compressing all the other noise coming in. You don't want the compressor to compress your overdrive. You could try it, and you might have something really cool. But the general unwritten rule is the compressor is always first in the signal chain. So compressor, overdrive, modulation at the end. So if you're having a chorus pedal, a vibrato, a delay, some guys like to use. I should have maybe brought a delay. You can use a delay for a short slap to really fatten up the slide notes. You don't want to hear the delay. You just want to make it just a bit fatter, right? Especially with slide, because if you're all over the place here, it can be a little thin. Like you'll find sometimes you get a slide tone that sounds a bit thin, and when it sounds thin, you start fighting, right? If you're trying to get something, you start pressing down on it, and you don't want to do that. The idea is feather technique. You want to just touch it, and that's why the compressor also helps.
So the notes that I've learned from here, like open AG and all that sort of stuff, whatever. Okay. Do I tune my electric to that too, or is it a different tuning?
Whatever you want. Because again, it's 6 strings in the truth. You may
Well,
find yourself.
Most of my guitars are tuned in an E.
You have a lot of guitars.
Yeah.
So take. He does. I know this, right? If I were you, so here's the thing though. If you're gonna tune one of your guitars to an open G, do it Nashville style because you don't want to crank the open G up to a GBD. Pretty tough on the bridge and the neck.
Okay.
A lot of tension. That's why if you want to do acoustic, your dobro should take it. Your dobro's fine with that, right? Your electric guitars, I wouldn't go any higher than an open E.
Okay.
So open E or open D. Open D's beefy.
Well, yeah.
If you go open C,
That's low.
well, it sounds cool, but get a bigger, heavier gauge of string.
Yeah.
Like maybe take it up to like almost a 62 up to a 14 string on an open C, right? But a regular, like for your guitars, I tune them all differently. And start playing. You got enough,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
You know, there's no reason to tune your guitars. Tune them all to one thing and start playing until you find out which one you love.
Which one is?
You know, you may find you love them all. You just master them all as you go.
That's what I'm looking at.
Depends on the mood.
Depends on your mood.
Thank you.
Yeah, there you
And
go.
what sound you're looking for?
Right.
Yeah.
This little white thing here, that's one of those auto pickers.
Oh shit! You know what I was going to show you guys? Sorry. Yeah. Sorry. This was an idea. This is actually a pretty cool tool if you want to work on your
What's the
vibrato.
proper name for that?
Well, this is the poor man's Evo. This is a Joyo Evo, but yeah, if you remember Evos, they were designed to emulate the violin.
Yeah.
I've never heard one that sounds like a violin, but I've heard some. I used to use one in the Eaglesmith band for years. But the idea is this: so. And this one here also has the octave, the harmonic, so. And so what this would be a cool thing to use.
How's it doing the octave? Just picking really.
It's got a harmonic. It's basically powered by a 9-volt battery. It's basically a magnet, right? That
Oh.
works against the magnets here. And they work on single coil guitars, but they really love a humbucker more,
Okay.
right? But the idea, so the reason I brought this out, and if you guys want to get into some cool stuff, it's an easy tool to work on the vibrato.
That is cool.
So I used this tool for a long time below the tuner. I used them so that I could sit here like this and make that smooth. And so that I don't look at it, so I can do it from up here. It also helps me get into pitch. See, what you want to do, you want to, well, it depends. If you play live, you don't want to be staring at your fretboard and looking at your shoes, unless you're one of those, what do you call it, like shoegazers?
Shoegazers.
These young kids these days, shoegazers, right? So, well,
30 years ago.
oh, us? I don't even know, man. I hear about these shoegazers. Well, what is this band? I do shoegaze. Sounds like a rock and roll band to me, right? But anyways, yeah. So the idea of this thing is, again, it's also a cool tool. Like, I mean, if you're I use it for that so I can stare away. Hear the difference? And that'll help you with your intonation. And so I found it was a good tool using mine to work on that. It really helped me along with this, right?
You're basically ear training like you're learning a fretless instrument then, basically.
And well, basically, slide guitar, you're right. Slide guitar is a fretless instrument. That's a pretty good analogy, man. Good one. You just nailed it. That's the T-shirt of the weekend. The slide guitar is a fretless instrument.
Okay,
And if you've ever played a fretless instrument or fretless guitar, I've seen lots of, I can play fretless guitar. Here, try it. No, you can't. Pretty sure you can't play it because it's really, like the guys that do play fretless, the violin players, like crazy. Like their intonation, their pitch is perfect. Right? It's a musical.
I don't mean to upset your mood, but what about Dustin Johnson when he plays a
A shovel.
three string shovel guitar?
Yeah, it's
There's no
beautiful.
frets on it.
No, it's a fretless shovel.
Yeah.
He actually plays a shovel. Yeah, I know. I did shovel it in Australia years
It's
ago.
only $700 too.
Well, it's a shovel, man. It does more than just that.
Yeah.
Go dig your grave when your wife finds out you paid that much for it. Right? You can do all that stuff.
Bury your dog. Bury your dog.
So, folks, that's essentially the basics of slide guitar without getting too notey and carrying on. This was more of a discussion about like how to get going, right? And then what you'll do. I guess Tanita, you filmed this, and I guess she'll put it up on a private link.
I do have a question.
Oh, you do? Yeah, you can't ask questions. You're an employee. What is the question?
Oh no. So picking hand.
Right.
If you've never done any finger picking, just picking up a slide for the first time, where do you recommend people start?
I recommend this. I'm going to show you something very simple. That's a good question because it never really
I
occurred
pay
to me.
attention sometimes.
Can you
you
hand me
pick
one of
with
the
a
acoustic guitars there?
Do you
Doesn't matter which one. Just any acoustic guitar that's playable.
when you play, do you finger pick or do you play with a pick too?
With a pick.
With a pick?
Right. So the very simplest form of finger picking, and this is a simple one. Again, this is a thing. Like, has anybody ever finger picked here before? You have. Okay. You have. Anybody else? Right. So Sagar always finger picks. I've seen your videos here. I've seen it.
I can't use a pick. It just flies off.
Right. This is the most simple. It's a version of a Travis picking, which is the thing. Right? So basically, we'll just go over this very quickly without getting bogged down, because again, this will help with the mechanics if you're an acoustic guy. So basically, it's like your thumb is driving the truck. Right? So think of your thumb as the kick drum and these fingers as the snare drum, right? So the second part of this, now I'm still angry with this, but what happens is helps with the spider technique. So, right, so it's basically a forward roll of a banjo, right? So I'll slow it. So actually, we'll make it even simpler. So notes. So right in the middle of that, you got, right, that's just a simple pattern. Right, so when you get that, just a simple thing, but that will help for this slide stuff. You kind of, I guess that was a good one. I kind of should have explained that more in the beginning, but the point is, yes, if you can finger pick, if you're just sitting around before you get all fogged up and slide, if you just sit in the house going, right? And I think if this might be helpful, if you, except for you, you're not an internet guy. Us people are. If you go, I have a YouTube channel, and I'm not trying to sucker you into subscribe over there, but there's a whole bunch of easy broke down slide lessons there, and it kind of covers a lot with this too. So if you're getting this stuff, go and you can see there's a 2-camera. There's a whole series on that. But yes, the finger picking is important, and it will help with the spider technique, because it really helps you build your guitar yoga. I call it yoga, right? You know, get that going. You do it until you get to Don Ross.
I never thought of it as yoga because I never wear spandex.
Well, you're missing out, buddy.
I'm country boy.
Right. So yeah, good call to you. That one made it on there. This is why she's. We don't know whose employee of the month is yet. Segar's had a pretty good month too. I've never employee of the month. Just the guy.
I think you should be. It's hard. You've done a great job today.
So any other questions? Jesus is best inspection I've ever had. You know, was yelling at me. What's going on?
This is a beginner's lesson.
Yeah. So you can check out. There's some there's some slides back there to check out. You can do whatever you want. I'm hanging out here for a bit. We're not leaving right away. Hang out. You all got your CD. I don't want any criticisms about it. No. Autographs for $1,000. Yeah. No. The reason I give the CD, I gave that to. There's a fair amount of slide guitar playing on there. It's a tribute to JJ Cale. It's with my band. We did it live off the floor, right? JJ Cale would have. But there's some slide guitar in there, so it gives you an idea of what we talked about here today, of how we got to where it gets to there, and how you can integrate it wherever you want to go. You play a slide guitar anywhere. Just play it right. You know. The slide guitar guys are the first guys to get fired. They really are. If you're out of tune, the slide guys are always the first guys to get fired. But if you're a good slide player, you won't ever look for another job. You'll have to be knocking down your door.
Still won't get paid much though, right?
You don't get paid. This is listen.
This is a vocation.
This is exposure. This is about exposing yourself to society.
You can go to jail for exposing yourself.
This is about this is about the exposure. Now listen, folks. Thanks for coming. I'm honored actually to show up for this little speech. That was pretty cool.